恭敬大德神定，为此法会集一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，速人无生。Build the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings. Please send the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss, and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto sucheto ye alahati san miao san puto che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good knowing advisors, welcome back. This is lecture number 131 of the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra. Okay, and today we'll be doing something new. Hold on, let me move my... Today we will be investigating mindfulness of renunciation, but before we get there, we'll just quickly have a summary of where we left last week, which is we've talked about the accumulation of good roots. Before I go there, as usual, Ron already has a question. He has typed out in the chat box. Does anyone else have anything they want to bring up? You can ask, or you can type in the chat box, whichever is more comfortable with. Yes, Peggy.
So on the post of the same day, the title mentioned there are 7 kinds of bowing. and I only saw 4. So I wonder if I missed it or more is coming.
Oh, more is coming. Yes,
Oh,
number
okay.
5 is on the way tomorrow, because if I 6 and 7 hasn't been emailed out yet, and then if I send all of them together, it'll be a bit too long, so I broke it up. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. I just want
Okay.
to make sure I didn't miss anything.
No, yeah, tomorrow and day after. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So what did we do last week? Okay, we looked at very briefly the 5 paths, but we were concentrating on number 1 and number 2, the path of accumulation and the path of added effort. And why are we revisiting this? Okay, so what we did was this. We looked at the first path, which was the accumulation of good roots. Okay, I will explain why we are revisiting this again in the next slide. It's very important because it explains what we've been doing for the last, I don't know, maybe months, maybe 3 months. Yeah, because it's worth spending time slowly on what we're doing. And this explains why. So the first path of the 5, the accumulation of good roots, is where we practice the Noble Eightfold Path, which consists of precepts, merit, and concentration. So precepts, say the 5 precepts, or the 8 precepts, the 10 precepts, the Bhikshu, Bhikshuni precepts, the Bodhisattva precepts. That's where we learn how to control our senses. And in other words, what does that mean? It means how we react to sight, sound, smells, tastes, feelings, and our own thoughts and emotions. Okay, so that's the role of precepts. And then what's the role of merit? The role of merit is found under right intention, which means as we go about using our mouth, body, and mind, okay, our thoughts, our actions, and our speech. If you want to create merit, okay, the difference between, if we are doing good things, wholesome things, the difference between creating merit and blessings, okay, is if you do it with goodwill, with renunciation, and with harmlessness in mind, then you are generating merit. And what are the things that you can do? Well, you can practice generosity, which is our topic for today. You can study the Dharma. You can memorize the Dharma, like mantras or sutras. You chant the sutras. You can recite the sutras. You practice meditation, and you develop wholesome mental states like loving kindness. Okay, if you do it with right intention, okay, that means you do it underlined with goodwill or loving kindness. You do it with the idea of reducing your desires, and you do it with harmlessness in mind, then you are creating merit. Okay, and then the next aspect, which is the string that ties all this together or reveals why we are doing what we're doing, why we're studying what we're studying right now, is the beginning of concentration. So what's in the beginning of concentration? That's called preparatory and access concentration. That's before you go into absorption concentration. Absorption concentration, you can say, is the dhyanas. It's when Shufu says the first dhyana, either your breathing or your pulse stops. In different explanations, Shufu, sometimes he says it's the breathing that stops first. Sometimes Shufu says it's the pulse that stops first. Any of you who can get into the first dhyana, then you will know for yourself. Okay. Anyway, before you get there, which is what most of us are in right now, preparatory and access concentration, which has to do with Ron's question, is when you are recollecting to yourself or mindful of yourself, of the Buddha as your teacher, the Dharma as your, as where you get wisdom for learning how to live your life, the Sangha for connected to that as well. You're mindful of your own virtue, which we just concluded last week. You're mindful of your generosity, which we are going to begin this week. And the 6, there's a formula of the 6 recollections. Typically, there are different formulas. Sometimes they go up to 10, but usually is 6. And the last one is the devas. I'm not sure if it depends on how much. I think the devas we might get into week after next, probably. So what happens when you are mindful of the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, your own virtue, your generosity, and of the gods? Okay, the next level, how do you get to the absorption concentration, which is a deeper level of concentration? It says when the previous objects of concentration become too discursive, a deeper level of concentration is attained towards topics such as the 4 divine abidings of loving kindness, which is basically our main topic, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity, or some people, they prefer to do mindfulness of breathing. So now you see, okay, why when we are studying about loving kindness, we are also studying about mindfulness of the Buddha, mindfulness of the Dharma, mindfulness of the Sangha, mindfulness of your own virtue, mindfulness of your own generosity, and mindfulness of the devas, which we haven't gone into yet. It's because before you can practice loving kindness well, you have to be mindful of these 6, or at least one of the 6, like say mindfulness of the Buddha, which is Pure Land practice. So that's the the step by step directions as given. Usually you don't find this in the sutras, and in most of the texts. Okay, in most of the texts, even I didn't. Okay, I have to confess, I didn't know this when I started out and I mapped how from loving kindness you get into mindfulness of the 6 mindfulnesses. I didn't know that this was the actual formula or the actual approach, because it's not really found in a lot of texts. That if you investigate loving kindness, they don't tell you about how mindfulness of the 6 mindfulnesses or the 6 recollections are connected to loving kindness. But it was through practice that I that I thought that this should be the, okay, I didn't think this should be the right way. I just thought of presenting it this way. But Venerable Nagarjuna or Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, who compiled the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, that means the great commentary on great wisdom. This is how he laid it out. Okay, so that's why I'm sharing it with you, because I'm very, very happy. Okay, I'm not leading you down a crazy road. This is how it's actually done. All right. Okay. So having said that, oh, where's my file? Okay. Today, I'm so sorry. I haven't been sharing the slides with you at all. Okay, sorry. Okay, so this was the slide that we went through last week. Okay, so this is a recap of what I just recapped just now. Okay, so this is what we went through last week. And number 1 and number 2 on your screen was what we concentrated on. Okay, and then the next slide was what I was talking about, the accumulation of good roots, where we practice the Noble Eightfold Path, which are made up of precepts, merit, and concentration. And then I explained to you what are precepts, or the role of precepts in terms of our senses. Anytime, okay, precepts, what do they do? You always hear Shufu talks about outflow. Anytime we engage with our senses, with the outside world, it's called outflows. Okay, so to minimize our outflows, at the very least, we when we engage with the world, we try to create merit at the very least. Okay, as Buddhists, so as not to so at least our outflows are in a good, wholesome way. Okay, and that's where merit comes in. So that's why I talked about right intention. Okay, so this was the slide I was supposed to be showing you, not the title screen, but I was looking at a different, I was just looking at a different window, so I didn't know. And then what you see now on your screen on the top is preparatory and access concentration, where we are preparing ourselves to go into dhyana. And this is where what we are learning about mindfulness of the Buddha in the last few weeks, and then which is also Pure Land practice, and then mindfulness of the Dharma, mindfulness of the Sangha, and then last week we finished mindfulness of our own virtue. Today we are going to go into mindfulness of our generosity, and maybe not next week, because I think generosity will take at least 2 lectures to finish at least, and then the devas after that. Then we get into, if you can recollect all of this or some of this, it depends. There's no hard and fast rule. It all depends on the individual. But if you can recollect them well, that means if you have done a good job with your own practice first, for you to recollect something, then you can get into the dhyanas or absorption concentration. And it will be, you don't have to worry about how it happens. It will be a very natural progress. And then your practice of loving kindness will become very deep. Okay, that's why you need recollect the 6 recollections first, to give yourself the foundation where your mind is calm. All right? Okay. All right. So today, our topic is mindfulness of renunciation. I think I will address Ron's question. Let me go back one slide. So Ron's question is about the 4th type of bowing that we've been sharing in the WhatsApp chat. So what is the 4th type of the 7 types of bowing? Shufu says the 4th type of bowing is known as pure and wise bowing. It refers to someone who uses true wisdom to purify their body, speech, and mind while bowing. Those who are wise bow to the Buddha in this way, purifying the 3 karmas of body, speech, and mind. When you bow to the Buddha in this manner, your bodily karma is pure as you refrain from killing, stealing, or committing sexual misconduct. You also do not entertain any thoughts of greed, hatred, or delusion. Instead, with your mind completely focused, you respectfully bow to the Buddha, leading to the purification of your mind karma. Your mouth recites the Buddha's name, sutras or mantras, and without any lewd, false, harsh, or divisive speech, your speech karma is purified. When the 3 karmas of body, speech, and mind are pure, you bow to the Buddha with true wisdom. Okay, why am I addressing Ron's question right now? Because this is where you are developing preparatory and access concentration. So mindfulness of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, your virtue, your generosity, and the devas, you can do that as you bow to the Buddha. So if you do it well, as how Shufu just explained, then Ron, you can say that you're bowing at number 4. Now, what's number 5? Number 5, you have to wait for I'm going to send it out tomorrow. But Shufu says it's called pervading the Dharma realm. It's a different kind of bowing. Okay. So if you do it well, if you bow well and you are reciting the Buddha's name, as Shufu says, or you're just recollecting the Buddha, you never know. Your mind can slip while you're bowing. Your mind can actually slip into the dhyanas. Or you can how you say, you can see what it's like for your mind to be really, really quiet, for the mad mind to stop, or to find the gaps in between your thoughts. That's a real possibility. Okay, all right. So I hope, Ron, that answers your question. If not, you can type it in to clarify. Okay, so today we're doing mindfulness of renunciation, or mindfulness of generosity. And what is that? Okay. Says in regards to the recollection of generosity or renunciation, there are 2 terms seemingly different, but they're actually two sides of the same coin. It says there are two kinds of abandonment. This is the third coin. Okay, actually there are three sides to a coin. There's the two faces that we all know, and then there's the edge. So abandonment is another term for renunciation or generosity, letting go. Okay. So when it comes to generosity, okay, there are two things that you can give. You can give away material items or material gifts, or you can give the Dharma. So two. And then what's the other kind of giving away that you can give? You can give away your afflictions, your disturbing emotions, or you can abandon them. Okay. So there are two kinds of abandonment. One is abandonment that consists of generosity. You don't abandon generosity, but you abandon, you abandon by practicing generosity. Okay. And that is in the form of giving material gifts or giving the Dharma. And then the other kind of abandonment or letting go is your afflictions, disturbing emotions. All right. So let's look at what it means to give away things, material generosity first. Okay. So it says one who wants to develop the recollection of generosity should be naturally devoted to generosity and the constant practice of giving and sharing. This is like common sense. In order to recollect your own virtue of generosity, you have to be practicing generosity in the first place, correct? Okay. Or, okay, alternatively, if he or she is one who is starting the development of it, so this is the first time you hear that you should recollect your own generosity and you realize that you haven't really practiced giving. So what you should do, okay, it says, you should make the resolution from now on, when there is anyone present to receive, I shall not eat even a single mouthful without having given a gift. Okay, so where does this come from? This comes from a sutra. I'm going to share it with you. It's a very famous sutra. Okay, the title of the sutra is called Giving Even One's Last Meal. So it says, so the Buddha says, okay, if beings knew as I know the results of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would the stain of selfishness overcome their minds. Even if it were their last bite, their last mouthful, they would not eat without having shared if there was someone to receive their gift. But because beings do not know as I know the results of giving and sharing, they eat without having given. The stain of selfishness overcomes their minds. So when I'm reading this, it reminded me of the Ulambana Sutra, where Venerable Mahamoggallana, when he became an arhat, became enlightened, the first thing he did was to look for his parents. And then he found his father. His father was reborn in the heavens, so he didn't really have to worry about the father. And then he looked for his mother, and he realized that the mother was born as a hungry ghost. So how do you get born as a hungry ghost? Well, one of the main things that causes rebirth as a hungry ghost is selfishness, the total opposite of generosity. So how did this play out? Well, he visited his mother, and because when you're born as a hungry ghost, you have nothing to eat. So Venerable Mahamoggallana is known as the foremost of the Buddha's disciples in spiritual powers. So he manifested a bowl of rice and he gave it to his mom. And it is said that what the first thing the mother did was she snatched the bowl from Mahamoggallana, and right after that, she hid the bowl with the other hand so other people could not see that she had the rice. Yeah. And when she tried to eat the rice turned into hot coals in her mouth and it burned her mouth. And because that was the result of her karma. Yeah. So, so selfishness leads to being a hungry ghost. Yeah. So, there's a monk who was known as one of the great commentators. His name is Acharya or teacher Dhammapala. I think he was during the 6th century, yeah, a long time ago. So he said that bodhisattvas, he says when bodhisattvas give, bodhisattvas doesn't mean maha bodhisattvas like Guanyin. It means anyone who aspires to save living beings. He says for us, budding future bodhisattvas, he says giving assists or is a foundation of the development of virtue, and it's very easy to practice. Giving is very easy to practice. And then it says giving has the characteristic of relinquishing. That's why it's also known as abandonment or renunciation. Why? Because as you give, if you do it right, okay, if you do it right, it helps dispel greed in us. So the more we give, the less greed that we have. So as we give, we are also giving away our greed. Yeah. And then it says the manifestation of generosity, or the manifestation means how can you see, how do you feel giving? It says in non-attachment, or the achievement of prosperity. Why achievement of prosperity? Because the more you give, the more you get. Yeah. So actually, it's kind of like a not oxymoron, but it kind of doesn't make sense, because if you want more, you give. The more you give, the more you get. So by right, giving should be an act of greediness, but it's not, because the more you give, and if you do it well, the less greedy you get. So it doesn't make sense, right? Yeah. And it leads to a favorable state of existence. Yeah. So the virtue or the act of generosity is actually the foundation of the bodhisattva path. Yeah. So that's very interesting. Okay. So let's move on. It says one who wants to develop the recollection of generosity. So this is where we left off after we visited that the saying of the Buddha. Okay. So now we move on to the next slide. It says, so what happens when you realize you haven't given? It says, and that very day, all right, once you realize you want to practice this, on this very day or the next, in other words, the next available moment, you should give a gift by sharing according to your means and the ability with those who have distinguished qualities. Says when the practitioner has apprehended the sign in that he should go into solitary retreat and recollect his own generosity in its special qualities of being free from the stain of avarice. Avarice means stinginess. And then there's a verse that follows. But before we get there, let's just unpack this a bit. It says the second paragraph says when he has apprehended the sign. What is that? It means that you have tasted the flavor of giving. You know what it feels like. How do you know the flavor of giving? Well, you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to yourself, what goes on within yourself. That means mindfulness of giving. At the same time, you have to do it right. Okay, so there's a story, and I've shared this story before, and it's Shufu's story of giving away his favorite candy. So there's one day, who told me this? Let me see. I don't remember who told me this, but I heard it from a few people who were there. They said they went to the dining hall at, I think it was CDTB. It was either CDTB or Gold Mountain, but I think it was CDTB. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, they went to the dining hall and they saw on their table, everyone had a piece of candy, the white rabbit candy. And then they saw Shufu. Shufu was looking at them and Shufu was smiling. And Shufu had this big grin. I think it was Duck. Yeah, maybe Duck Powers, who I heard this story from. He said Shufu had a big grin on his face, very wide smile on his face. And Shufu said, oh, someone gave me my favorite candy today. It's my favorite candy. And that's why I'm sharing it with all of you. And then Shufu asked them a question. Do you understand? So if there's any one of you who's had something that's really important to you, or something that you treasure, or something that's your favorite, and you have shared it with someone, or you have given it away, then probably you might understand what Shifu means. And Shifu asks them, said, do you understand? It's my favorite candy and I'm giving it away. Okay? All right. So let me see. What else? There is some, I think, okay. Let's go on to the verse of how you recollect your own, once you have the sign, okay, how you recollect your own generosity. Oh, okay, I have this thing for you before we go into the verse. Okay. I always share this when I talk about the difference between hardship and suffering, but I'll use this for generosity. Okay. So at CDTB, when I first went there, I tried to fast for 3 or 4 days, and I felt really miserable because I didn't know what I was doing. But it gave rise to this example. If you all imagine, okay, because if someone had asked me how would I have felt after not eating for 3 or 4 days, I think I ate on the 4th day. So not eating for 3 full days, how would I feel? I would have told them that I felt really miserable. Why? Because I was just doing it for myself. Because I was hungry all the time, I was weak. When you bow and you stand up, you feel like you're going to faint. And you just think about food all the time and your stomach hurts. So it's not a good feeling. But there's an exercise, there's a mental exercise, there's an imaginary situation that you can put yourself in. Okay, imagine you have this magic bag that whenever you put your hand in, whatever you take out is the exact food that you want to eat at that particular time. So it's a magic bag. And you're hungry and you want to eat something, you put your hand in the bag and you bring out something and says, oh, this is exactly what I want right now. I've been thinking about this and I love this magic bag because this is what I want to eat. But before you eat it, okay, you see someone in front of you or a family and they look like they haven't eaten for a while. And you realize that, oh, if they don't get to eat something, they may not survive for very long. So any decent human being, instead of, eating whatever they have, would probably share it or give it away. Most likely give it away because they seem more hungry than you are. And then you feel happy, and then after a few hours, the happiness wears off, and then you feel hungry again. Then you put your hand into your magic backpack, you bring out something that you want to eat, and it's the exact thing that you wanted. You didn't even think about it, but the moment you saw it, you say, yeah, this is what I really want. And again, before you eat, in front of you, there's someone or a family who needs the food more than you do. That's why the Buddha ate 1 meal a day. I don't have the source, but I was told this before. The Buddha ate 1 meal a day because the Buddha could see that there are a lot of beings in this world, or the Buddha knew that there are a lot of people in this world who did not have enough to eat. So that's one of the things Shufu did when he cut down on his food as well. Shufu says some people may criticize him because there's no direct correlation between eating less, and that doesn't mean other people get to eat. But Shufu says it doesn't matter because he knows other people don't have enough to eat. Therefore, he would not eat to excess. He would just eat enough, not even enough. Shufu says eat 80% of what is enough and stop. Don't go to 100%. So apparently that's why the Buddha ate 1 meal a day, because the Buddha could see or sense that there are people in this world who do not have enough. Anyway, coming back to this hypothetical situation, imagine going for 1, 2, or 3 days where every time you want to eat something, there's always someone in front of you that needs the food more, and someone asks you, oh, how do you feel physically? You know, any of you who has fasted before, even like 1 meal a day, you would If you take 3 meals a day, every day, and you try to take 1 meal a day, all of a sudden you will know it's not easy. Time comes in the evening, you start thinking about food and you feel hungry and you don't feel like it's a normal thing to do. But if someone were to ask you, how does your heart feel? How do you feel inside? Emotionally, how do you feel? So that's the point of this hypothetical situation in how giving can help. And if you take that light from giving, okay, that can help you overcome any physical hardship. And if you try to meditate, then you will see a huge difference in yourself. Yeah. As opposed to what? As opposed to, say, you try going out, instead of helping people, you be mean to people, you scold people, you pick fights with people whole day, and then you try to meditate and you can feel a difference. That's how generosity helps in the practice of concentration. Okay. All right. So going to the verse on how you should be mindful of generosity. Okay, it goes like this. This is from the commentary called the Visuddhimagga, or the Path of Purification. It says this is how you recollect, but you can, once you understand the point, you can do it in your own way. It says, it is gain for me, it is a great gain for me, that in a generation obsessed by the stain of avarice or stinginess, I abide with my heart free from stain by avarice, and am freely generous and open-handed, that I delight in relinquishing, expect to be asked, and rejoice in giving and sharing. So that's a Bodhisattva practice. Although this is from a Theravada text, not only do you delight in giving and sharing, you expect for people to ask. That means you're looking for opportunities and you rejoice in it. Okay. And then in the moving on to a different text, this is Nagarjuna Bodhisattva's commentary on great wisdom. He says, material generosity is the root of all good dharmas. There you go. There's a foundation of all of the Bodhisattva path. In fact, in future slides, which probably not this lecture, the Bodhisattva on the first ground, okay, if you're a brand new Bodhisattva, and you get on the first ground, the first stage, the first Bodhisattva stage, what practice do you perfect? You practice giving or generosity. Yeah, so that's the first paramita that you perfect as a beginning Bodhisattva. Okay, so the practitioner has the following thought. It is thanks to the first 4 recollections, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and of your own virtue. There you go again. Okay, that I will succeed in curing the sicknesses of the disturbing emotions. What are disturbing emotions? Anything that causes you afflictions or suffering. All right. So the recollection of the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and of your own virtue is how you cure your own afflictions. Then the Nagarjuna Bodhisattva continues by saying, how am I going to get these 4 recollections? Now, in previous existences and in this present lifetime, the occasions of making gifts to the 3 jewels or the triple jewel are rare. Why? Okay, why is that? He says, in this beginningless universe, beings are ignorant of generosity to the 3 jewels. This is why their merits become exhausted and disappear. But the 3 jewels have immense qualities. This is why gifts made to them are inexhaustible and necessarily lead to nirvana. Furthermore, if the Buddhas of the past have first produced the mind, this is the Bodhi resolve that he's referring to when he says produce the mind. Wait, let me see. Let me read it first before I start to explain. It says, furthermore, if the Buddhas of the past have first produced the mind, this was as a result of their numerous or less numerous gifts. And so the Buddha said that generosity is the first aid to Bodhi. Okay, given my limited understanding, when it says here, have first produced the mind, I think it would be the mind of Bodhi resolve. What do you all think? It could be the mind of Bodhi resolve. It could also be the awakened mind. I think either way is, let me see, resolve. I think it's more significant. I think it's they are not the Bodhi resolve as I first thought, but the awakened mind, because then they can see, they have true wisdom then, and they can understand cause and effect. So when they can see their true mind, their true wisdom arises, they can see how generosity was so important as the aid to Bodhi. Okay, all right, moving on. It says, furthermore, human life is impermanent and wealth slips by like a flash of lightning. If they should be given even when people do not ask anything of you, then why should you not give them when they beg of you to give them? It is necessary to give in order to create conditions favorable to Bodhi. Okay, so that's why for lay people, if you look at the Pali Canon or the Theravada text, the Buddha mostly talks about generosity to lay people. The Buddha teaches about the 5 precepts, how to be a good husband, wife, daughter, son, brother, sister, employer, employee. The Buddha talks about all that. But basically, the Buddha also talks a lot about generosity. Yeah. So for lay people, and not just lay people, but for new bodhisattvas, for new maha bodhisattvas, giving is the best practice. And it says, furthermore, wealth is cause and condition for all kinds of disturbing emotion and misdeeds, whereas virtue, in the form of precepts, concentration and wisdom, and the various good dharmas are cause and condition for nirvana. Consequently, if one must rid oneself of one's wealth because it is dangerous, why not make it a gift? Why not make a gift of it to the excellent field of merit? Okay, so what kind of logic is this? This is our bodhisattva logic. What is bodhisattva logic? Previously, okay, we talked about how stinginess is a main characteristic of hungry ghosts. Okay, whereas for bodhisattvas, as we shall see in later slides, bodhisattvas give to the extent where they give even their body away, and this is literal. You will reach a stage in your practice where the Buddha has demonstrated countless times. There's a saying, no, not a saying. Was it a sutra? I don't remember whether it's a saying or sutra. I think it was a sutra. It says that there is not a single place in the entire world where the Buddha has not given up his life to save living beings. To that extent, yeah. For example, in the Jataka tales, there's one story where the Buddha with his brothers at that time, he wasn't the Buddha yet. This was in one of his past lives. He saw a family of tigers, and they were starving and close to death. So what did he do? He did something that doesn't make sense to normal people. Apparently, he stabbed himself in the neck, and then he threw himself down the cliff, and so that his body could be eaten by the tigers. Yeah. So for normal people whose wisdom has not arisen yet, that totally does not make sense. Because why? That's the wisdom or the logic of bodhisattvas. How do bodhisattvas see things? Bodhisattvas see their body as impermanent, as a source of suffering if you don't have wisdom. And so what happens is, because they understand the cause and effect of giving, to them, giving, being able, but because they have reached the level of practice, okay, that's why it's not a practice for ordinary people. When they can give away their body, they actually feel happy because they know that first of all, they're helping living beings. They probably make a vow that that particular living being that they're helping, that they will cross over to become a Buddha, because that's typical of bodhisattvas. Not only do they make that kind of vow, but and they can do that because you're creating that kind of powerful affinity with that living being. But sorry, I got distracted by Ron. Ron, I'll come to you in a minute. Okay, but they can also do that because they of precisely how they view their body. They're not attached to the body at all. So for people like us, how do we understand that? Well, imagine this. Imagine that you have a car. Okay, a lot of people are very attached to their cars. I know this because I used to be one of them. Why? Because the car was an extension of how I saw myself. I also like driving, and I got a car. I had a car that was very nice to drive. It was fast, and you could handle very well, and all those things. So I was very proud of my car, and I was very attached to my car. But just like any other car, it's impermanent. It will break down. It will wear down. And if you use it unwisely, it will become a source of affliction. You can get into accidents. It takes a bit of money to maintain a car. So imagine if you had a car that could break down at any time. Okay, it's what they call a death trap. As you're driving, sometimes as you try to brake, the car may not stop. As you try to turn right, the car might turn left, or the steering wheel might come off in your hand when you're driving. Would you be terrified to drive that car? At the very least, you won't be happy, right? So that's how the Bodhisattva sees our body in that way. So can you imagine if someone comes to you and say, "Hey, if you give me your car, then in a week's time, okay, or after you give me your car, you get another car in return, and this car is a lot better. It costs 3 times as much as your old unreliable car. It's safe, and it's like the trade-in of a lifetime." Who would not trade in their old junk for something new and reliable, something better? No one in their right minds would deny themselves of such a deal, right? And if that deal keeps on happening, every time you get a chance to trade in your car, you get a much better car. That's how bodhisattvas are able to give up even their bodies, because that's how they see. That's bodhisattva logic, which is actually really logical. The reason why they can do that is because they're not attached, not like us. Because of our attachment, we are blind. We don't have any wisdom. We don't see cause and effect, or rather, we don't understand cause and effect. So we get attached to all kinds of things, even an old junk like our bodies that is going to betray us one day. But the bodhisattvas don't see it that way. Okay, so that's the difference between bodhisattva logic and our logic. They do things with wisdom. But if we can shift our perception, then we can also have bodhisattva logic as well. Yes, Ron, you're going to ask something?
I'm sorry, yeah, I wanted to just ask a question regarding exactly why bodhisattvas can give away their body or give away any parts of their body. Is it because that they're already enlightened, right? They're enlightened beings. I find it really difficult that if one is not enlightened, one is still attached to the body, right? But when you're enlightened, you're not attached to your body anymore, correct?
Yes.
And therefore, it's easier to part with your body. I mean, you already know, like, you're not going to worry about birth and death anymore.
Okay, so I guess for bodhisattvas who are enlightened, or they have a certain level of wisdom, they are able to see. They understand, and they are able to do those acts of giving backed by wisdom. Okay, but I think there are also many living beings around who have an understanding of the Dharma, or through past good roots from past lives, they have accumulated a certain perspective of themselves and of people and the world around them. And when there's an opportunity to give, you find that they have very little selfish elements in them, which enables them to do things that normal people find it very hard to do. For example, what comes to mind is, say, the donating of a kidney. We have two, we only need one, but most people will not give away one kidney because what happens if one fails? But there are many stories of people who will not hesitate. They don't think twice. They know that they're taking a risk for themselves, but they see the rewards, or they just feel like it's the right thing to do. So that's one example. As I was saying this, I was thinking of something else, but it just slipped my mind. Let me see, what was I thinking of? I'm sure all of you listening have stories, either of yourself or other people, or that you have read in the news. There are just people who are able to, there are people who are rich. And for example, that there's the wife of the founder of Amazon, the ex-wife of the founder of Amazon, who set up a charity. I'm not sure to what extent she's giving away her wealth, but she does it in a very good way. There are stories reported where the people who are recipients of her generosity do not know that it is from her, and the donations are given without any strings attached, and it's not given. It seems like it's not given for recognition, it's just given freely. Although I'm not 100% sure, but from what I read, that's the impression I get. And I think it happens a lot where there are beings who are not enlightened, and they do a lot of selfless acts that people that are not reported, people don't know of. It happens every day. I don't think being that only enlightened beings are able to do that. Yeah, Ron. I think as people walk the Bodhisattva path, there are different stages where people practice first at a level that's very natural to them, okay? But also there are some who are able to push themselves across certain lines, and like in one of the earlier slides, when you see the sign, when you have tasted the result of the giving, like in our imaginary situation where you constantly give food away although you're hungry. And if you practice meditation on top of that, then you will see that, it's really beneficial. It's a win-win situation for everyone. Yeah. So I think, Ron, you're right when you say that it's enlightened beings who can give, but I also think that along the way, how you get there is to constantly test your comfort zone, and that's how they progress. Because when you read about like the Avatamsaka Sutra, otherwise known as the Flower Adornment Sutra, which I have to share in the future slides on this topic of generosity, when you look at how before they become a bodhisattva on the first ground, that means they're still ordinary living beings, it describes their personality or the way they see life and living beings. And it's very, how would I say, for someone like me, it's very inspiring. Yeah, maybe next week I will share a bit of that, but it gives you an idea of how, even though they're not enlightened, but their perspective on life is what their perspective of life is like. So as we are on different levels of the path, if some people get inspired by that, some people are not. Some people are still, for some people, giving even 1 cent is like cutting off their arm. Some people are like that. But if they feel inspired, then you just start at where you are. That's all there is to it. The bodhisattvas are there as a source of inspiration, but we also have to be realistic with ourselves to know where our comfort zone is, and then try to push that as much as we can. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah, bodhisattva logic is not for everyone, but there's a certain percentage of people who hear about bodhisattva logic and they say, oh yeah, that makes total sense. Or they say, I wish I could do that. And then they work towards that. Yeah. Okay, what else? It says generosity is a precious treasure. It is also a good friend. It is beneficial from one end to the other. There is nobody who can destroy it. What does nobody who can destroy it means? It means that from a cause and effect, from a karmic perspective, the results that you get from generosity is yours alone. No one can take that away from you. Not like, say, if you have goals, people can steal your goals. You can get scammed and all that. But merit and blessings, no one can get in the way of your merit and your blessings. Yeah. Generosity is an umbrella of wondrous secrets. It can keep off the rain of hunger and thirst. Generosity is a solid vessel. It can cross the ocean of poverty. Avarice is a calamity. Because of it, one experiences sadness and fear. Bathing it with the water of generosity at once brings good fortune and happiness. The verse goes on, he says, the miser deprives himself of clothing and food. At the end of his life, he has neither joy nor happiness. Although he is reputed to be rich, he is no different from the poor person. There are examples in the sutras where people are very rich. I've shared this before. Because generosity, we have talked about generosity or giving before. And one of the stories I shared was this particular person who was very, very rich, one of the richest people in the city, but could not bear to even spend any money for himself. So this is what this verse means, like a poor person. And then the miser's home is like a burial mound or a tomb. The beggars keep far away from it, and finally nobody comes near it. The miser has neither merit nor wisdom. He is not firmly resolved to give. About to fall into the pit of death, his love of saving changes into suffering and hate. Only his tears will depart with him. The fire of sadness and regret will burn his body. What does this remind me of? People who hoard things, a hoarder. Only recently, in the news, I saw this news article about this house that the person died in or something, and the whole house was filled with rubbish. And they say one man's what is the saying? One man's treasure is another man's, or have it the other way around. What is that saying? Someone can help me type in the chat box. One man's something is another man's treasure. They're saying. Anyway, that's what a hoarder is like. They can't bear to throw away even like a scrap of paper. It's a mental disorder. Moving on, it says the good donor is happy and after death has no suffering. The person who practices generosity, his renown fills the 10 directions. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Yes. Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, that's the one. That's the saying. JinHe says one man's poison is another man's meat. Well, I think that's more of a Dharma saying, but that's true as well. Yeah. If you understand cause and effect, then you definitely see meat as poison. Okay, moving on. It says, so if you're generous, it says, he is loved by the sages. Entering into their assemblies, he is not afraid. When his life is over, he is reborn among the gods, and in time he will certainly gain nirvana. Condemning stinginess or avarice in many ways and praising generosity is called recollection of material generosity. Okay, so what we've been looking at so far is giving away physical things. Okay, or say even not just physical, but like time or attention as well. That's material generosity. Next week, my next slide, which we will go through next week, it will be generosity of the Dharma and what that means. Okay, so for now, before we end today's session, because it is time, does anyone have any questions or anything they want to bring up? Anyone? No, I hear crickets. Okay, if not, then we will transfer merit for today. Let me end this slideshow. Oh, what you see on your screen is a photo that I took when we visited Borobudur. I thought it was an interesting photo because if you look at the clouds right in the middle of the screen, that cloud kind of looks like a Buddha. Yeah, like a rough outline of a Buddha. Okay, where is my... Okay. No questions? No reflections? Nothing? Anyone? Okay. I'm going to put my palms together. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find in giving unity. May our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Venerable Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay, everyone, Amitofo. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you, Dharma Master. Good night.